There is a reason why true masters walk in silence. They don't announce their path. They don't explain their work. They live it. When a student once asked the Shaolin elder, "What do you do?" the master didn't answer. He just swept the floor. That was the lesson. You see, the more you speak about what you're doing, the less you're actually doing it. The moment you start performing your journey for others, it stops being yours. You become split, half focused on the path, half focused on how it looks. In Shaolin practice, truth is not in the words. It's in the repetition, the rhythm, the sweat, the silence between the movements. Real mastery is invisible. You don't see it in someone's titles or talk. You feel it in their presence, their calm, their clarity. In this video, I would take you deep into a principle most people never think about: why we must protect our inner path from outer eyes. You will learn how silence sharpens the mind, how secrecy protects your energy, and why telling others what you're doing too soon can weaken your spirit before it has fully formed. These are not just ideas, these are disciplines, practiced by warriors, monks, and those who walk the middle way. If you've ever wondered why your goals lose momentum the moment you share them, stay with me. There is wisdom here that can anchor your focus, protect your growth, and guide your steps back to alignment. Welcome to Shaolin Soulfire. If you walk this path of inner mastery, subscribe and return to silence, where power begins. There was a time when I believed I had to earn my worth by becoming something impressive, a title, a skill, a role that others could recognize and name. But the deeper I trained, the more I realized none of those things are truly me. You see, when someone asks, "What do you do?" most people answer with a label. "I'm a doctor, I'm an artist, I run a business." That's not the truth. That's just the function, a role you play for a time. Shi Heng Yi reminds us, you are not your role. You are the clarity behind the role. Like the sky behind the clouds, or the silence behind the words. If you introduce yourself only by what you do, you begin to live inside a box. That box becomes your identity. And when the role changes, because all roles eventually change, you feel lost. You ask, then who am I now? That's why the Shaolin path begins by stripping away everything you think you are. Titles, names, positions. It's not about destroying the self, it's about uncovering it. A monk may sweep the temple, carry water, sit in silence for hours. None of those are glamorous roles, but through them he cultivates presence, stillness, awareness. That's the real you, not the job, not the label, but the awareness that flows through every action without being limited by it. The goal is not to become more, it's to become clear. So clear that no matter what role you're asked to play, you remain undisturbed. You do not cling, you do not prove. You simply move with purpose and return to stillness. That is self-mastery. That is freedom. In the early stages of any path, something delicate is trying to form a spark, a quiet shift in how you think, how you breathe, how you move through the world. It's not strong yet, not steady. And like a small flame, it needs protection. But here's the mistake many make. They light that fire, then rush to show it to everyone. They talk about their plans, their goals, their new habits. And without realizing it, they expose something sacred to the winds of noise, distraction, doubt, other people's opinions, and worst of all, comparison. Not because others mean harm, but because a fragile fire cannot survive too much attention. It needs silence, stillness, repetition. In ancient traditions, new disciples were taught not to speak about their practice for years, not out of secrecy, but protection. Before the fruit ripens, it hides in the leaves. Before the warrior fights, he trains unseen. Before light shines outward, it gathers inward. There is strength in restraint, discipline in keeping things to yourself, not out of fear, but wisdom. The deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. So let your process be private. Wake early. Train in silence. Make progress without announcing it. Let the fire burn low, steady, quiet. One day it will become a light bright enough to guide others. But in the beginning, it's only meant to warm you. Nothing more. Protect it, feed it, and say nothing. Focus is like water. Wherever you pour it, something grows. But if it spills in all directions, nothing roots, nothing deepens. This is why mindfulness isn't just about sitting still with your eyes closed. It's economy, it's precision, it's choosing where your energy goes, and more importantly, where it doesn't. The moment you start explaining yourself, something subtle happens. You shift from presence to performance. You begin to shape your words. not for truth, but for acceptance. You begin to defend what doesn't need defending, and slowly your attention moves outward, away from the practice, away from the breath, away from the stillness that was guiding you. There's an old teaching: don't interrupt the river while it's flowing. Don't stop midstream just to point and say, look, I'm making progress, because by the time you've explained it, you're no longer in it. In the Shaolin way, even a small task like walking or chopping wood is a place to train presence. There is no urge to narrate, no need to perform. The movement itself is the message. The discipline speaks without words. So protect your attention like a flame in wind. Not everything needs a response. Not every opinion needs a reaction. When someone questions your path, let your practice answer. Let the results speak. Let your peace be louder than your explanations. Keep your energy where it matters, in the breath, in the training, in the moment. This is how you become strong inside, quiet outside, sharp in both. There's a kind of strength that doesn't make noise. You won't see it in the posture, you won't hear it in the voice. It reveals itself only when pressure rises. That's when you see who has trained and who hasn't. Shaolin doesn't train loudness, it trains stillness under tension. While others rush to prove, the monk slows down. While the world shouts, he listens. In the face of challenge, he does not react, he remains. Stillness is not the absence of action, it's the mastery of it. The ability to move without being moved by the storm around you. This kind of control doesn't come from words, it comes from repetition, breath, silence. Watching yourself carefully until nothing inside panics when the outside shakes. When you don't talk about your path, you give yourself space to actually walk it. No one to impress, no image to maintain, just the practice and your presence within it. Over time, you stop needing people to understand. You stop explaining where you're going. You trust the rhythm of your own steps. There's a quiet kind of confidence that grows when you do the work without the spotlight. It's not fed by applause, it's built in the shadows, in the hours no one sees, in the discipline no one praises. That's where embodiment begins. You no longer talk about balance, you are balance. You no longer describe your peace, you carry it into every room. And when that presence is strong enough, it doesn't need to announce itself. People feel it, like gravity, like silence, like truth. Some things lose their power the moment they're spoken aloud. Not because words are weak, but because some truths are meant to ripen in silence. In many traditions, there's a phase of growth that must stay hidden, not out of secrecy, but sanctity. A seed doesn't sprout in the open air. It stays buried, untouched, unseen. Only in that darkness does it begin to awaken. The same is true for inner work. There are moments of clarity, discipline, and quiet transformation that are too raw to expose. When you speak too soon, you interrupt the process. You open the door to interference, doubt, comparison, misunderstanding, and slowly what was sacred becomes scattered. In the old temples, monks were taught to hold their insights like water in cupped hands. No spilling, no showing off, just holding, feeling, letting it settle. Not everything needs to be posted, praised, or proven. Some growth is just for you, so it can become real. Silence is a container. When you don't explain, you listen. When you don't share, you see more. Wisdom is shy. It doesn't come when called. It appears when the noise stops. When the need to be known fades. That's when deeper knowing arises. And so you learn to protect your path. You don't reveal everything, not because you're hiding, but because you're building. What you guard with discipline grows stronger. What you display too early becomes fragile. Let your journey unfold like a morning mist, quiet, slow, unnoticed. Some truths are only meant to be carried in the body, in the breath, in the way you walk through the world. Let them live there. Let them deepen. Let them become who you are. The ego is always hungry. It wants to be noticed, praised, remembered. It feeds on recognition, applause, and being right. That's why it struggles in silence, because silence offers nothing to cling to. But silence is where the real training begins. When you stop explaining yourself, stop showcasing your strength, something uncomfortable rises at first. The voice inside says, don't let them overlook you. Don't let them misunderstand who you are. That voice isn't your truth. It's your ego, asking to be fed again. In the old monasteries, the first lesson wasn't how to fight or meditate. It was how to sit with yourself without distraction, without attention, without an audience. That kind of stillness reveals everything. Your impatience, your self-importance, your hidden fear of being invisible. But if you stay with it, something shifts. You begin to see how much energy was wasted on being seen. You begin to feel the quiet strength of not needing approval. You realize that humility isn't weakness, it's freedom. You're not making yourself smaller. You're just no longer begging others to make you feel whole. Silence becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, you see what's real. Letting go of the ego doesn't mean you dim your light. It means you no longer need a spotlight to feel it. You carry it within you, in your breath, your choices, your presence. Power doesn't need to shout. Truth doesn't need permission. The less you speak of who you are, the more clearly you become it. Not to impress, but to live in alignment. That's not hiding your strength, that's mastering it. No two people carry the same weight. Even if they walk the same path, their steps feel different. One moves with joy, another with sorrow. One carries old pain, another quiet hope. Every journey is shaped by unseen forces. Karma, habits, intentions born from lifetimes of thought and action. This is why comparison is poison. And this is why sharing too much too soon can lead you astray. When you constantly reveal your path to others, their reactions start to shape it. You begin adjusting your pace to match theirs. You start questioning your direction. Slowly, the path that was once yours becomes a performance, something to be understood, admired, approved. But the soul doesn't grow that way. In the older traditions, there was a deep respect for what was unseen. A student would train for years before even speaking of their practice, not because they were hiding, but because they were listening. They were letting the path shape them before shaping others' perceptions of it. What works for one may distract another. A method that awakens one person may cloud the vision of someone else. This is why privacy isn't isolation, it's devotion. It's choosing to walk your path with sincerity, not spectacle. There is a quiet strength in keeping your journey to yourself. It sharpens your focus, it deepens your intention, it removes the need to perform and replaces it with the need to understand. Let your path be sacred, not secret but protected. Not silent forever, but silent until it's rooted. And when your journey becomes strong enough to stand on its own, you won't need to explain it. Your way of being will speak louder than any words. The most powerful lessons are never shouted. They're not written on banners or spoken from stages. They're felt quietly, deeply in the presence of someone who lives their truth without needing to prove it. A true master doesn't point and instruct with ego. They embody the teaching. You see it in their breath, their timing, their stillness under pressure. They don't rush, they don't show off. They just move through life with clarity, and that clarity teaches more than any speech could. In ancient schools of practice, students would live beside the teacher, not for words but for energy, for rhythm, for the way the master carried wood, ate food, responded to difficulty. It was never about what they said, it was about how they lived. That was the transmission. That was the real teaching. When you stop announcing your journey, something shifts. Your energy stops spilling outward. It condenses, refines, becomes focused. People may not even know what you're practicing, but they feel the results. Your presence changes. Your reactions slow down. Your words carry weight, not from volume, but from alignment. This is how wisdom spreads, silently, like incense in a still room. Those around you begin to breathe it in. They watch how you handle conflict, how you walk, how you listen. And without saying much, you become a mirror, not of perfection, but of inner work in motion. Let your presence be the lesson. Not because you want to impress, but because you've done the work to become steady. Let peace be your message. Let patience be your language. And let others come to their own insight, not because you told them, but because your way of being reminded them what's possible. There is a quiet power in restraint. In a world that constantly pushes you to declare, display, and define yourself, choosing silence is a radical act. Not to hide, but to protect. Not to withhold, but to grow. What is still is not empty. What is unseen is not weak. When you stop announcing your path, you begin to walk it more sincerely. You stop performing and start transforming. The process becomes real, steady, alive, and in time, your presence will say everything your words never could. So keep your power close. Let it shape your breath, your choices, your state of being. Let it become part of you before it becomes visible to the world. Walk with intention, speak less, observe more, and trust that the strongest truths don't need to be shouted. They simply are. If this message speaks to something in you, we invite you to carry it into your daily life, with calm, with discipline, with quiet strength. And if you find value in this part, support our journey by liking this video and subscribing to Shaolin Soulfire, where silence teaches and the spirit leads.